Good afternoon.
Good afternoon.
All right, I like it. So we're in the Heights. Lots of energy. It's beautiful. It's beautiful. I'm Manhattan District Attorney Alvin Bragg. Thank you to everyone for joining us for this important announcement. I want to first and foremost thank our hosts. It's great to be here in Nimick. I want to thank all of the staff who works so hard on these very issues day in and day out, and in particular the Executive Director, Maria Lizardo, for hosting us today. And then really delighted to be here with so many partners in government and partners and colleagues in service. We'll hear from many of them today, but want to sort of just start by acknowledging our Congress member, Adriano Espaillat. We've got our state senator, Robert Jackson. From the Assembly, we have Assemblymember De Los Santos. Looking for everyone. Assemblymember Edward Gibbs, from the council, Councilmember Shauna Abreu, and Councilmember Carmen De La Rosa. We also have a number of offices represented. Assemblymember Al Taylor, Councilmember Christian Richardson Jordan, and Senator Cordell Clear. So we thank all of those in government who are on the front lines. We've been talking about housing. They are engaging with constituents, and many of them have passed very important legislation in this space. And then obviously the community partners are also on the front line. Here at Nimick, we have Rodrigo Sanchez Camus, Legal Aid Society, Magda Rosa Rios, Housing Rights Initiative, Nick Peters, Housing Conservation Coordinators, Leslie Thrope. And for just everyone here who's done the work, I want to acknowledge Jocelyn Manaya from our office, who many of you know. And so I could go on with the thanks because the gratitude is really, really heartfelt. I want to get to the meat of the message here to announce the creation of our office's first ever Housing and Tenant Protection Unit. When I took office as a Manhattan District Attorney, I promised to deliver housing justice by ensuring a dedicated unit focused on prosecuting deceptive and abusive practices by landlords. The creation of this unit is a recognition that safe and affordable housing is a public safety issue. When people experience housing instability, they are pushed to the brink, and that leads to poverty, homelessness, and crime. So housing is a public safety issue, and it's why we're here today with this announcement from the Manhattan District Attorney's Office. And we know we've reached a tipping point in the housing crisis. Median rents in Manhattan have reached an all-time high, and there's a lack of affordable housing options, which has put tenants in a vulnerable position, and unscrupulous landlords are looking to take advantage. To counter this, our new unit will take a targeted approach to investigating systemic, structured, and organized criminal activity among landlords and developers. That means prosecution of landlords responsible for continuous patterns of harassment against multiple tenants, in-depth investigations into potential fraud of government programs by landlords and developers, and continued protection of Manhattanites against deed theft and deed fraud. These issues are pervasive. They exist throughout the island, and in particular here in Washington Heights as well, which is why I'm honored to join with so many people from this neighborhood who have been fighting these issues for so long, both in this neighborhood and throughout the island. Some of the specific issues we will be looking at are not foreign to anyone here. Issues like a sustained lack of heat in the wintertime, lead paint, hazardous construction intended to make living impossible. I worked previously on a matter where the landlord took the staircase out, so tenants who lived above the first floor couldn't even get to their apartments. Deliberately withholding repairs, we've all seen that. And oftentimes this is accompanied by financial and tax fraud. So our targeted strategy makes full use of, or will make full use of, additional criminal penalties that were put into place by the legislature in 2020 for harassing rent-regulated tenants, which specifically allowed law enforcement to investigate and prosecute harassment that is part of a systemic, ongoing course of conduct. So that will be a primary focus. Now I want to talk for a moment about the staffing. I'm thrilled to announce today that our unit will be headed by Chike Ibabuche. Yes, please clap for him. As I know all my partners in government, we're so proud of our career dedicated public servants. We have phenomenal folks in the District Attorney's Office, and Chike has served with such distinction in the office for more than a decade. And his work has been within, most recently, the Financial Frauds Bureau. He's handled a variety of prosecutions and long-term investigations that mirror the tools and the skills necessary to do this work. So I'm thrilled about announcing the endeavor, but in particular thrilled about who will lead it, because we know people drive work. We also will have, for the first time, ADAs will be cross-designated specifically to work on these cases. And our first ever housing coordinator, Victoria Grievenberg. So we have almost 500 lawyers in the DA's office, and that's what we're most known for. We don't get any work done without folks like Victoria. So I thank you for saluting her. And we're committed to putting additional resources into this unit. I mean, my hope is that through these partnerships, we'll hear about the conduct that we need to address. And then if we need to grow the unit to meet the demand, that's what we will do. And I encourage Manhattanites, either directly or through your representatives, community, or government, to reach out to us if you've been the victim of this type of illegal activity. Our hotline is 212-335-8900. We also have a dedicated email that will be made available. So I'm very, very excited to be here, as you can tell. We'll be working in close coordination with our other law enforcement partners, like the Attorney General, the Department of Buildings, and Housing Preservation and Development. And we will refer complaints that do not rise to the criminal level to our partners to make sure everything is being addressed. Public safety is multifaceted. We must take a holistic picture to keeping Manhattanites and our community safe. That's what we're here to do today. So proud, and I want to turn it over to a phenomenal partner on this issue and so many more, my Congress member, Adriano Espaillat.
Thank you. Thank you. I want to thank DA Bragg for his leadership in this arena. He's been a leader also fighting guns out there. He's recuperated more guns, I think, that previous to him, and I think he's doing a good job. Yesterday I met with ATF, and they gave me a breakdown on what's happening with guns, and we need to do more. And of course I carry the Ghost Guns bill in Congress, but the DA has done a tremendous job there, and I'm glad to see that now this initiative is moving forward. Now, the first thing I did when I saw Rodrigo here, who's my good friend from a long time, is I asked him, how's your backlog going? Because I know that the backlog here sometimes is just impossible, right? And that's because of the need that we have in the community for housing services. So to see the DA take this on, I think it helps people like Rodrigo, and it helps Northern Manhattan Improvement Corporation and Palante Harlem and all the advocates and the Legal Aid Society and all the advocates that are dealing with housing issues. And in neighborhoods like this one, and I dare to say several neighborhoods in my Manhattan part of the district that have been subjected to very controversial rezoning and are currently going through gentrification and feel the pressure of gentrification on a daily basis. These are, Mr. DA, exactly the tactics that are being used by unscrupulous landlords to move people out. You know, they're denying them basic services, heat and hot water. They question their tenancy, and they go ahead and they start a holdover proceeding, right? I'm not a lawyer, but I know about holdover proceedings, right? And of course, you know, they may hike their rents illegally, right? Or they just allow the building, really, the services to collapse. They buy them out too. I'm gonna be unbashfully straight. They buy people out because folks may think that with a couple of $1,000 they're gonna resolve their issues, and then they find themselves without the $1,000 and without the apartment. And so there's a good part of this that must be educational, right? To educate the tenants about the perils of being bought out, right? And they do, over here in a place like this, they do it around Christmas time because they know a lot of the families want to go back home. And since the airline tickets are now $1,400 and $1,300, you know, you take $10,000, you take your wife and your 2 kids, that's $5,000 right there in airfare. So when you come back, you have no money and you have no apartment, right? And I seen how the cost of housing post-pandemic has shot up dramatically. And this is a real problem for New York City. But this unit will help us fight this on the ground. We can't do this alone. We can't do it just in our district offices. We cannot do it just with Northern Manhattan Improvement Corporation. We have to have the power of the District Attorney's Office behind us. And so this is an excellent initiative. I'm sure that I will be referring cases to you, Mr. DA. In fact, I have some in mind already. I'm not going to say who they are. Watch out there. I'm going to do this, right? And so, en español, me agrada de que el fiscal Alvin Bragg tome esta iniciativa. Esta es una iniciativa para combatir acciones criminales de los caseros inescrupulosos, como negarle calefacción, como negarle agua caliente, como negarle los servicios básicos a un edificio para que los inquilinos se vean forzados a irse. Y ellos entonces naturalmente alquilar los apartamentos por una renta mucho más alta en un vecindario como este, que después de la rezonificación va a enfrentar alce de rentas dramático. Por eso tener al fiscal aquí con esta iniciativa es positivo, porque él va a enforzar la ley y asegurar de que los caseros inescrupulosos no violenten la ley, apoyando programas como este del Northern Manhattan Improvement Corporation y otros. Vamos a lograr de que los inquilinos estén mejor protegidos para preservar un vecindario como el nuestro, que es diverso. We must preserve our neighborhoods that are diverse across the district and across the city. The only way to do it is with working with Alvin Bragg to make sure that unscrupulous landlord will feel the weight of the law. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Congressmember. I live in his district, so I in addition to having the privilege of serving side by side with him, I see the fruits of his great work all day, every day. I want to now next turn to Senator Robert Jackson, who I've had the pleasure of working with since I was a staffer at the council, and seeing his tremendous leadership across the years on this issue and so many others, including education, obviously. Thank you, Senator.
Well, thank you, DA Bragg. Let me tell you that this is a fresh of breath air coming down all the way through Manhattan. And I say that because I represent from 26th Street and 9th Avenue all the way up to Marble Hill, 13 miles of Manhattan. And housing is a human right. Housing is what everyone needs. I talked about the stability of housing. If in fact you're a homeowner or if you're a renter, if in fact that's crumbling underneath you, the family falls apart and it brings so much stress and strain upon everyone. But clearly, when it comes to tenants, the first thing I ask the tenant when they come into my office about a housing issue, please tell me what you have done first. If you've communicated with the owner on several times and they have not done anything, then you come to us, and they come to us. And so, and when we call, and when we write a letter, and when we call and write a letter, and they do nothing, we hold rallies and they do nothing, then we're going to turn to the DA and say, now, your legal arm we need in order to make sure that the tenants are taken care of. That's the most important thing. And you know one thing? They want to see action. That's right. That's what they want to see. They want to see action in order to stop the harassment, stop the putting a lease in front of you and say you got to sign it right away, and half the people don't even know what they're signing. That has to stop. So let me just thank you and your staff for putting this together on behalf of all of the residents of Manhattan. I am absolutely sure that the other DAs are going to follow your lead. Thank you very much.
Thanks so much, Senator Jackson. Keeping with the theme of folks whose district I live in, I heard Senator Clear's voice, so she joined us. Great to see you. Love to have you come and address us.
This is truly a great day because, you know, as we fight to create more affordable housing, it doesn't make sense to create 100 units and lose 1,000. We're not helping the problem. So we have attacks from all fronts, and I'm so proud of my DA, who's my constituent, who decided to jump in this issue this way. The congressman mentioned unscrupulous. I'm going to go further. There are greedy, vicious, predatory people out there preying on our community. They know what they're doing. They're doing it on purpose. And they are victimizing the young, the not so educated, the elderly, whomever, the poor who are vulnerable. So it is fitting that our DA stands up to protect the poor and protect the vulnerable in our communities as they are being heavily and forcefully gentrified. The congressman mentioned buying people out, they steal people out. You should see the money that they offer people after putting them in a position where they can't live comfortably, making sure that services are not given year after year after year. It weighs on a person not to have heat in their apartment, taking off days from work, their children getting sick, the elderly getting sick. So it's very vicious and it is criminal. And this is the office that should be handling it. It is long overdue. I thank you, and look forward to working with you. I, too, have a list already. Yeah, let's put our list together. And let's go after these people who are viciously preying on our communities. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Senator Clear. I should have brought a Redwell for these lists. I should know we have such a wealth of experience from our electeds and community leaders who are working. And we joke about it, but we know it's real. Y'all have lists, and that's why we're doing this. We're at the ready for those lists so we can join this fight. I want to call next our Assembly member, who we are, De Los Santos.
Thank you, District Attorney Bragg, for taking on this great initiative, and it's happening literally a block away from where I grew up. Been in that same apartment for over 30 years, and it couldn't have happened in a better place. But today is about housing justice. And oftentimes when we talk about housing justice, we talk about initiatives like this one, protecting our tenants, protecting our neighbors, protecting our residents. And this new initiative will do exactly that. For many years, landlords have abused and neglected hundreds of thousands of residents throughout the city, throughout the state. And today, we'll look forward to put an end to that pandemic. Yes, sir. And to say that New Yorkers are not alone, that we're here to stay. And we're here to protect them, we're here to work with them, and we're here not just to protect them and work with them, but we're here to protect them from getting kicked out of the apartment. And I cannot thank you enough for doing what you're doing and your team, for using your office to bring this service to residents in New York City. So thank you again.
Thank you. It's invigorating to see all the great leadership we have from our federal to our state. And I wanted to call up my neighbor to the east, Assemblymember Edward Gibbs.
Hey, good. So I know the hour is getting late, and so I agree with everything that our congressman said. I actually repeat everything he said, and I also agree with our state senator. But I want to use this moment of opportunity just to thank District Attorney Alvin Bragg and his wonderful, amazing team for putting this initiative together. We are excited and anxious to start working with you guys to make sure it bears fruit. Thank you.
Appreciate it. Now, we know nothing happens in this city without our strong leaders in the city council. And so really delighted to have with us two council members. And so we'll hear first from Councilmember De La Rosa.
Thank you. Thank you. Well, I just want to say that it's a new day, and I'm so proud to always stand with our DA, Alvin Bragg, because he doesn't just talk the talk, he walks the walk. He ran on a platform that talked about justice and reimagining justice, and housing justice is at the center of that. And so I want to thank you, as always, for all you do, and welcome, Chike. We're so proud to have you leading this office. You know, I want to just take a moment to thank Maria Lizaldo, Nimic, Rodrigo, Manhattan Legal Services, Legal Aid Society, Cloth, all of those organizations that are serving tenants on the ground day in and day out. My office is down the block, and I get about 50 people a day, and 90% of them come in for housing cases. We're in over 30 buildings as an office by ourselves trying to organize these buildings, and if it's not for the help that these organizations on the ground give us, our community would no longer exist. And as Cordell said, as Senator Cordell Clear said, these landlords are acting in a criminal manner. Nimic has actually led some of the fraud cases, some of those cases that the AG has actually done in favor of tenants. They've gotten settlements in favor of tenants because that practice is so pervasive in our own community. And as we battle the forces of gentrification, it is important that as a city council, we're putting funding and resources, we need to put more, I know that, into legal services, period. But as we work to get those resources, we have our federal government, our state partners here as well, making sure that tenant laws protect actual tenants. We're here to send a message to landlords, and that message is that although you think you've invested in a business, your business is a business of people, of housing people, and that the district attorney is now going to have a unit dedicating to weeding out those abusive landlords who continue to harass and displace our community. And I stand with y'all. So I'm just going to say in Spanish, en español, que es un honor poder estar aquí como la concejal de esta área. Nosotros sabemos lo que es trabajar para los inquilinos todos los días, inquilinos que llegan a nuestra oficina con un eviction notice, con una nota de desalojo en sus manos. Y es por las organizaciones que están aquí que nosotros podemos garantizar que ellos se queden en su casa. Hoy es un nuevo día donde nuestro fiscal nos está dando otra herramienta más para asegurar que esos caseros que se creen que invirtieron en un negocio y no en personas y hogares puedan tener, nosotros podamos buscar justicia cuando ellos actúan en una manera criminal. Así que le doy la gracia al fiscal y siempre lo apoyo y lo voy a seguir apoyando por su ojo y su enfoque en la justicia. Gracias.
Thank you so much, council member. Such a steady, consistent, and strong force in our communities. It's an honor to work with the council member. Our Congress member talked about guns, and so I think it's fitting from the electeds to end with Councilmember Abreu. We started this week together with the signing of his first bill in the council, which is going to help us in law enforcement do our job better by tracking the flow of illegal guns into our state. And that work is connected to this work. It's all safety work. So I'm honored to stand with you again, twice in 1 week, Councilmember Sean Abreu.
Let's give it up to Alvin Bragg, everybody.
Yeah.
There's a new sheriff in town, and that is Alvin Bragg. The corruption and collusion that's used to take advantage of renters in our city is close to being over. For me, it's very personal to be here today. I ran a campaign on housing rights. I went from being evicted as a child to becoming a tenant lawyer, keeping families in their homes. To the people here at Nimic today, I know the work you're going through. I know the backlog of cases, as the congressman says. You're inundated, and at some point, it feels impossible and insurmountable. Just know that you have an advocate at the city council to expand right to counsel, but also making sure we're addressing pay parity so that retention is addressed. I know that we are losing lawyers at an all-time high, and we'll do everything that we can to secure pay parity, but also expand organizational funding equity. I know that a lot of organizations who aren't getting the support from the city that they should be getting. The creation of the Housing and Tenant Protection Unit sends a clear signal to those who break the law that you will be held accountable. And already, we have been working with Alvin Bragg in one of the buildings in my district. There was a fire that took place, and now the landlord is under criminal investigation. This kind of partnership that we are doing together with our district attorney will send a very powerful message to our landlords that you better think twice before you act. And that kind of leverage that the district attorney is going to bring, like the congressman says, will help alleviate the cases that you're seeing here at NIMIC and other legal service providers. Today, tenants know that they have a strong ally in my office and a district attorney who will go to bat for them to secure their rights. Brevemente en español. Para mí es un gran orgullo estar aquí presente hoy al lado de Alvin Bragg, nuestro fiscal del condado de Manhattan. Para mí es muy personal estar aquí presente. Yo cuando era niño, mis padres fueron desalojados de mi apartamento y ahora soy abogado del inquilino, asegurando que nuestras familias se mantengan en sus hogares. Los abogados que están aquí presentes hoy están inundados con los casos que tienen. La ciudad de Nueva York tiene que asegurar mejor pago de sueldo para que nuestros abogados se queden y no se vayan para el sector privado. Tenemos que asegurar que aseguramos más fondos a la ciudad de Nueva York, que vengan organizaciones, que lleguen a organizaciones como la de NIMIC, que están haciendo el trabajo cada día para ayudar a nuestros inquilinos. Tenemos un fiscal en Alvin Bragg que ya ha trabajado con nuestra oficina para asegurar que los caseros que están actuando mal ya están bajo de investigación criminal. Y este trabajo conjunto con él es lo que va a ayudar a aliviar los casos que están habiendo aquí en nuestra comunidad. Por lo que quiero dar las gracias a todos y vamos a seguir hacia adelante.
Thanks, So I think I can speak for all the electeds. Thank you so much, Councilman, particularly for sharing your personal story. But we know, and as Councilman De La Rosa said, you name the folks who are going into court and doing the work. We wouldn't stand up here as government folks and not acknowledge and hear directly from the people who are day in, day out, making our neighborhood so much better on this very issue. So I wanted to turn first to our host organization, Rodrigo Sanchez Camus.
Thank you, District Attorney Bragg. These are hard acts for me to follow, I gotta say, but I'll keep it short. I wanted to thank District Attorney Bragg and his team for coming today to announce this important unit. NIMIC has been advocating on behalf of tenants for over 40 years, and we understand how important accountability is in confronting illegal behavior by landlords. Civil penalties alone simply do not do enough to address the behavior of these landlords. We are proud to stand alongside the DA's team to hold these landlords accountable, and whose aim is to force members out of our community. Is tenants, and the most vulnerable tenants are the ones who end up getting evicted. Those who can stand up, those who can hire an attorney, okay, don't need us. The ones that need us are the most vulnerable ones, and when we don't have the ability to serve them because we have too many cases, they're the ones that are getting evicted from our community, and they're the ones that make up the backbone of this community. So for us, we really see this as a means to preserve the most long-standing and vulnerable members of our community. And I thank not only DA Bragg and his team, but all of our elected officials here today. I am really, I was going to name everybody, but I don't even think I can remember everybody now. But to see such a showing, to me, indicates that all of them understand that we are in a crisis here. This is not just politics or lip service. This is a crisis. We are losing our communities, and I welcome every piece of every tool we can use to push back on this behavior. So thank you to everybody here for pushing this work forward. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you for your work, and thank you so much for hosting us. Now I want to turn to the Legal Aid Society, which is doing great work in this space. I know firsthand. I used to serve on the Legal Aid Society board and know the leadership there well. So Magda Rosa Rios.
Thank you. It's hard to think of something else to say that hasn't already been said. So I will say the following. As has been said before, this is so long overdue. To say that housing in New York City is in crisis is such an understatement. And it simply is not enough to have the attorneys that we have now that are in housing court preventing evictions or trying to prevent evictions, because we all know that landlords use other strategies to displace tenants that are not legal strategies, that are not strategies that you're going to be able to fight in housing court, but will ultimately end up displacing our communities, displacing our clients, and completely changing the face of what New York City looks like and what our neighborhoods look like. And so I am going to put in a plug for one of the programs that I actually direct, which is our anti-harassment tenant protection program, who works directly with tenant groups to prevent displacement, to prevent harassment, and we do it on the ground. We do it before cases get filed in court. We protect tenants' rights before they even have a case filed against them. So I want to put in a plug, not just for additional funding for our right to counsel, but also for our AHTP funding, because it is critical. Right to counsel may protect tenants or may address strategies that landlords use through the front door, but there are so many other strategies that they're using through the back door. And tenants need and deserve to have counsel to help them address those strategies as well. So thank you for everybody here, and thank you for having us, and thank you, District Attorney Bragg, because as I said, it is so important to keep creating tools to address, because again, housing is not just a safety issue, it's not just a health issue. Housing is a human right that is all of those issues combined. Thank you.
Thank you so much. We have two more groups to hear from, and want to give them our attention, because they too are doing phenomenal work in this space. So here next, Nick Peters from Housing Rights Initiative.
That's a lot of great acts to follow, no. But good afternoon, my name is Nick Peters, and I'm from the Housing Watchdog Group, Housing Rights Initiative. Today I'm speaking on behalf of our Executive Director, Aaron Carr. We take a proactive and systematic approach to investigating real estate fraud. Through our investigations, we have uncovered rampant housing fraud in New York City. This is why we are excited for the creation of the Housing and Tenant Protection Unit. Housing fraud cannot go unchecked. We need major players such as the District Attorney's Office to help fight against it. It is great to have a district attorney who is taking a strong approach to addressing real estate crime in Manhattan. Therefore, we commend District Attorney Alvin Bragg for creating this unit and for fighting unlawful real estate practices. We look forward to working alongside his office and protecting everyday New York City tenants. Thank you for having me today.
Thank you so much. And our last speaker, last but not least, is Leslie Thrope from Housing Conservation Coordinators.
Thank you. I just want to say, because I can't echo in louder terms everything, but I met you on a Zoom. You were running for office, and you said the key words, "I will fight for housing justice." And I said, this is our guy. Who said there's a new sheriff in town? This is our guy. He's going to make a change. And I have to say, he has made the change. We're working with your investigators right now in an office in Hell's Kitchen. HCC is located in Hell's Kitchen, and we represent tenants along the west side of Manhattan. We're working with them, and they are phenomenal. They walked into that building, they met the tenants, they saw the deplorable conditions that they've been living in for 6 years. So you are doing this, and we are standing by you. Thank you.
Thank you so much for your partnership, and thank you for acknowledging our investigators. Lots of y'all thank me. It really, I mean, it's Chike, it's our housing coordinators, it's Josh who runs our office, and it's all of us working together. Thank you so much. And thanks to y'all.